Hi, I'm Randy Hicks, and let's talk about adult adoption. Before I start giving you information about it, you probably want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. So let me give you my credentials very quickly. I've been a lawyer for 36 years. I limit my practice to adoption, so it's all I've done for those 36 years. And at this point in my career, I do nothing but adult adoption. I probably do more than any other lawyer in the state. And I'm happy to tell you about how the process works. Why don't we do this in a question and answer format, which I think will address all the issues you want to know about. Let's start with the most basic one. Why do people do an adult adoption? I think the simplest answer to that question is that someone 18 or over has formed what feels like a parent and child relationship with someone other than their biological parents. Probably the most common area where we see this is step-parents, where a step-parent has filled in to become the dad or the mom, but for some reason they didn't do it legally. They didn't complete a step-parent adoption when the child was a minor. Quite often it's easier to do when they're an adult. But adult adoptions aren't limited to step-parent. Quite often people form parent-child relationships with others. Sometimes they want to do that in place of their current parents or in addition to one or both of their parents. How is the adoption of an adult legally different than the adoption of a minor? Well, there's a lot of very important differences. Probably the biggest one is with an adult adoption, there's no home study or investigation that's required of the adopting parent. Technically, a judge has a discretion to ask for that, but I've never seen that done in 36 years. It's just routinely not required. The other major difference is that there's no consent to adoption required by the biological parents. In fact, there's not even any notice given to them. It's strictly up to the adoptee and their new family if they want to share that information with the biological family. How do we know where to do our adult adoption? In California, we have to file in the county where either the adopting parent or the person being adopted, who we call the adoptee, lives. Only one of the parties needs to live there. So let's say, for example, the adopting parent lives in Los Angeles County and the adoptee now lives in West Virginia or Paris, France. Doesn't matter, just so one of the parties lives in that jurisdiction. Can the adoptee change their name as part of the adoption? The judge granting the adoption can not only grant the adoption itself, but in the same adoption order that the adoptee's name is legally changed. That's very, very convenient for people because normally if you want to do a name change in California, you have to go to court, you have to pay a filing fee, you have to do a newspaper publication announcing the desired name, and then go back to court. With an adult adoption, you don't have to do any of that. It's all done basically at no extra charge as part of the adoption itself. So the final adoption order will include not only the fact that the adoption is granted, but state what the adoptee's new legal name will be. What about a new birth certificate? Can the adoptee also get a new birth certificate? The answer is yes, and I'd say probably 75% of the adoptions that I do, the adoptee elects to have a new birth certificate. It's voluntary whether you want to get one or not. So option number one is you keep your current birth certificate, nothing changes, but you have the adoption order which shows what your new legal name is. If you've changed your name, you don't have to. And also the names of your new legal parents. But you can also elect to get a new amended birth certificate. That will seal your current birth certificate so it no longer exists. Prepare a new one to take its place, which will list your new name if you change your name, and also list your adopting parent as if they were a biological parent, as well as any other parent who is keeping their rights. What is the legal effect of doing an adult adoption? Well, there's two main things. One is the right of inheritance. If the adopting parent or the adoptee were to pass away and they did not have a will or a trust, now they're automatically in line to inherit from the other. Typically, the line of succession first goes to a spouse. If there's no spouse, then property would pass to any children. If there's no children, then to parents, and so on down the line. Now remember, that's really only an issue if someone passes away without a will or a trust. If you have a will or a trust, for the most part, you can do what you wish with your property. The other main thing that's accomplished with an adult adoption is that We're forming the parent-child relationship with the benefits and responsibilities of that relationship, meaning that both parent and child have the expectation to be there for each other as time goes on. Does adult adoption terminate the parent-child relationship between the person being adopted and their current legal parents? That is a very good legal question and a little bit of a confusing one. The short answer to that question is when an adult is adopted, it's just like the adoption of a child. The adopting parent becomes full legal parent the moment the judge signs the order, and it ends the parent-child relationship with the current legal parents. Now, there's one major exception to that, and that's step-parent adoption. In that case, let's say the adoptee, we'll name him John. Let's say that John's mother has remarried, and that stepdad has become legal dad. So now that stepdad is doing an adult adoption of John. Well, in a case like that, the biological mother automatically keeps her parental rights intact. And the same thing in the reverse, if it was a stepmom, dad would keep his rights. So in a step-parent adoption, the current legal parent married to the adopting parent automatically keeps their rights. But what about if it's not a step-parent adoption? Well, in that case, then yes, the parent rights are technically severed. The law changed in 2020. The new law says, and I actually wrote the new law, and luckily it was passed by the legislature. The new law says that the adoptee can designate keeping their current mother and or father's rights intact and still be adopted. This means that the adoptee can have 3 legal parents, perhaps even 4 legal parents. So that's routinely done now. What are the documents required when doing an adult adoption? This varies based upon the county in which we're filing. Some counties like Los Angeles have more documents required than any other county in the state. I think typically 12 is the average number of documents that I file for an adult adoption in LA County. Other counties require less. But the normal documents are always going to be the same. There's going to be a petition for adoption, an adoption agreement, a spousal consent if either party is married, an order of adoption. So those are the minimum documents, but there's typically going to be between 8 and 12 depending upon the county. How do we sign our court documents? Every lawyer is going to be different. Some will mail you documents to sign. I do everything electronically. It's the fastest, most convenient way for you. I send you the documents in an email. You review them. You sign them digitally. You don't have to print anything. You don't have to mail anything. It's all done in a very quick, simple fashion. How long does it take to do an adult adoption? Well, I'm happy to say that adult adoptions are typically very quick, at least the ones that I do. We typically finalize between 6 weeks to 3 months after we filed the initial paperwork. Every county is a little bit different, but because there's no home study required, typically they can be finalized very quickly. Does adult adoption require a court hearing in front of a judge? The answer is yes. But the good news is adoption final hearings are extremely short and extremely pleasant and ceremonial. If you think about it, judges deal with misery all day long. It's not a very happy job. So they're dealing with fighting parties all day long. So adoption is about the only time when everybody comes to court for a happy reason. So judges are typically in a very happy mood on adoption day. So the final hearing is very short, very casual. The court just confirms that all the parties have signed the documents, that they understand the documents, that they want to create the parent-child relationship. The judge signs the order and it's final as of that moment. If you're electing to get a new birth certificate, that's not prepared by the court. That's prepared by Vital Records. And that typically follows about 6 months later. How much does it cost to do an adult adoption? Well, every lawyer is going to charge a different amount. Most lawyers in California charge hourly, and the typical hourly fee is about $400. And I would say the typical total fee will be between $3,500 and $4,000. I will admit that even though I'm a lawyer, I'm not the biggest fan of lawyers, and I don't like hourly fees. I think a lot of lawyers are kind of like contractors remodeling your bathroom. We've all been there, where you get a quote for a certain amount, and by the time the work is done, all of a sudden the bill is higher than expected. I just charge a flat fee, so you know exactly what your fee will be from the very beginning. It doesn't change. I charge a flat fee of $2,250, which is less than most lawyers. Even though I have more experience, I think I can do it faster and better. It's a flat fee that includes the court filing fee, the cost of generating the new California birth certificate, any costs that I incur in doing the adoption, which most lawyers charge you separately for, is all included in that fee. Also, most lawyers will charge you separately if you are keeping parental rights intact, in other words, having a 3 or 4 parent adoption. I don't. It's also included within the same flat fee. Randy, if we want to get started with you, how do we get started? I'm glad you asked. I'd be happy to assist you with your adult adoption. I have a very organized and simple way to get started with me. First, go to my website. I actually have more than one. I'll leave the links below. And I encourage you to read about the adult adoption process because it's a very informational website. It's not promotional like most. It's actually giving you good, solid information about the process, more than is included in this short video. And you'll see a place to fill out a questionnaire. You do it online, you just click on it, fill it out, click submit. It gives me information I need to know more about your case before we have your consultation. Once I get that, I'll contact you. We'll schedule a free consultation. It's about 30 minutes, so it's very detailed. We cover more than I'm covering here. And we do it by Zoom, so very convenient for you. I ask that both the adopting parent or parents and the adoptee be present because I want you all to be educated on the process. I hope this video has been of assistance to you. I've tried to make it as complete as possible while still keeping it somewhat short. But again, by scheduling a consultation, we'll cover things in more detail and as they relate specifically to you. I've been somewhat general here. So I'd love to hear from you. I'm still working at my advanced years with all this white hair because I really love my job and I like meeting new families. And my goal is always to make this fast and simple for all my clients. So it would be an honor to do that for you as well.